again, good morning and afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Ponce from the Resilient Cities Network, and it's a pleasure to introduce today's session of Cities on the Frontline. We've heard from inspiring voices across regions, sectors, and backgrounds since launching the series with the World Bank City Resilience Program back in 2020. And today, with the support of RCNO program, we are happy to bring this conversation on urban heat mitigation and adaptation strategies over to you. Before we jump in, I just would like to share a couple of ground rules for the session. So we hope to have an open and candid conversation where you get to interact with our panelists. We have around 360 participants registered for today. So to help keep things flowing, please use the Q&A box on Zoom to share your questions. We'll relay over to our speakers during the Q&A at the end of the session. Also, just a quick reminder that the session is being recorded and you'll be able to find the video and all materials on our website afterwards. Without further ado, I'll hand the floor over to Aphrodite Boikidis. I knew I was going to mess that up a little bit, but I think it was okay. She's an urban resilience specialist with extensive experience supporting cities in both Europe and North America to design and implement resilience strategies. Previously, she also was a core member of the 100 Resilient Cities initiative, and she led efforts in governance and social systems within the Resilience Office of Thessaloniki. She'll help us today to frame the topic and then also to moderate the panel. So without further ado, again, over to you, Aphrodite. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone joining us now or watching the recording later from different places and different climate zones. I'm guessing many of you may work on heat and climate-related planning or disaster management, or you work on making our cities more sustainable with good quality of life for everyone. As you likely know, extreme heat is the deadliest climate-related hazard for urban populations. It occurs more frequently, it's more intense, it lasts longer, and along with the effects of related hazards like drought and wildfire smoke and air pollution, it has a growing impact on our health. The consequences of extreme heat are many, and heat affects the health of humans, animals, and vegetation. It affects our agriculture and food systems. It can overwhelm healthcare systems, impact economies, worker safety, and even damages physical infrastructure. Today, we will focus on heat health risk, but even here, there are many aspects of how heat impacts health and many considerations involved in heat action planning. I just wanted to recognize this broader complexity before we get into some specific examples that our speakers will talk to us about. So today, we'll hear from two speakers, as we mentioned, who will share some of what is happening in their cities to address heat risk in the short term and long term, and at the local level and metropolitan scale. Our speaker from Athens will tell us about digital tools being developed for heat resilience in Athens that can be used to guide long-term planning as well as more immediate preparedness actions. And our speaker from Vancouver will focus on the importance of community-based organizations for resilience work. Before I introduce our speakers, I just want to say a few words about each city. Athens is a Mediterranean climate, of course, so it has a long history of long, hot summers, but extreme heat and heat waves and the related health risk is increasing. Athens is the hottest capital city in Europe, and Europe is the continent heating up twice as fast as the global average. And Athens is a large metropolitan area and has very dense built environment with too few green spaces and greenery in most areas. Vancouver has a different climate. It is on the west coast of Canada near the Pacific Ocean, and it's known for its milder climate with mostly rain throughout the year, even in winter, and lots of beautiful greenery, lakes, rivers. In fact, there are beautiful temperate rainforests here. But in this region too, it's experiencing more frequent and longer drought, and more residents are not used to this, and more heat waves and days of high temperature, including in the summer of 2021, when an unprecedented heat dome affected Vancouver and much of the province of British Columbia. And this extreme heat event lasted 1 week and resulted in more than 600 heat-related deaths. So there's a different kind of urgency in each city, but an urgency nonetheless. The discussion today is not to compare the cities directly, but I wanted to share a little context and point out that even as cities deal with the different levels of past experience with heat or how quickly extreme heat is increasing, there's always value in learning from each other, because a range of action is needed to help people prepare for to help keep people safe and to reduce vulnerability and risk moving forward. So now I'll introduce our speakers. I had the pleasure of working with both of them. I work currently on a project with Iphigenia for Metropolitan Athens, and I have collaborated with Katia on work related to Vancouver. Katia Tynan is a relationship builder who fosters trust and collaboration with partners across sectors. She serves as the manager of resilience and disaster risk reduction with the City of Vancouver. Katia led the development of the Resilient Neighbourhoods program and oversees the implementation of the Resilient Vancouver strategy. Katia will focus on the role of community-based organizations in the resilience work. The City of Vancouver launched the Resilient Neighbourhoods program in 2017 to build on the services and programs that allow communities to thrive day to day and consider how to transform them to address future hazards like extreme heat. Over the past 4 years, the Resilient Neighbourhoods program has become a vital component of the city's extreme heat plans and response work. Iphigenia Keramitsoglou is a research director in satellite Earth observation at the National Observatory of Athens. Her expertise includes thermal urban remote sensing and the development of satellite-derived innovative services to address heatwave impacts. She holds a PhD from Imperial College London, a Master of Science in Remote Sensing from University College London, and a physics degree from the University of Athens. Iphigenia co-leads the new GEO Nexus on Climate, Energy, and Urbanization, GEONES, and is an active member of the GEO Program Board's Urban Resilience subgroup. She also serves on the science panel of the Extreme Heat Resilience Alliance of ARSHROC, leads stakeholder engagement in ESA's HeatWise project, and is developing digital twin for heat, soon to appear on the Destination Earth platform. In her presentation, Iphigenia will tell us about how innovative tools, including digital twins and Earth observation, can help guide smarter, faster, and fairer decisions in managing risks. So I will turn it over to Katia for her presentation. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Aphrodite. Just give me one moment to get set up here. There. So thanks for joining, everyone. Again, I'm Katia Tynan, the Manager of Resilience and Disaster Risk Reduction with the City of Vancouver, and it's a pleasure for me to be here today and speak with you about the work that we're doing with community-based organizations around extreme heat. I'll start by saying I'm very privileged to do this work on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. These nations have been stewarding these lands in sustainable, resilient, and adaptive ways since time immemorial and are on the front lines of fighting climate change. So thank you, Aphrodite, for sharing this context around Vancouver. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but yeah, just to reiterate, extreme heat is responsible for more weather-related deaths in Canada than any other hazard. And in 2021, we experienced a deadly heat dome wherein 619 people across the province of British Columbia died. 117 of those were in Vancouver. And while Vancouver is not a place that we think of as grappling with extreme heat, we are a temperate climate. One of the challenges we face is that as a result of that temperate climate, most of our buildings and our infrastructure was not designed for rising temperatures. Not just that, but green space and tree canopy are inequitably distributed across our communities and neighborhoods in Vancouver. So some neighborhoods are disproportionately affected by the urban heat island effect. So in terms of what we know about who is most affected by extreme heat, we ended up getting a fair bit of data from the heat dome in 2021 and the BC coroner's report from that. So we know that 98% of the deaths that occurred happened indoors. So again, people's buildings and living situations being a key driver of risk. We also know that 56% of the people who died lived alone, so social isolation actually being another really significant driver of risk. And finally, 67% of the deaths were people over the age of 70, so age being a significant factor and people's physiological conditions. So this was also combined with analysis of the fact that many of the people who died and were affected most significantly are considered to be socially and materially deprived. So people who are facing significant socioeconomic challenges in their day-to-day lives that, of course, also influenced their experience of extreme heat. So one of the ways that we are addressing extreme heat in Vancouver is recognizing the importance of our social infrastructure. Social infrastructure really refers to the relationship between physical buildings and gathering spaces, thinking of things like libraries or neighborhood houses, the social activities and services and programs that are offered within these spaces, and of course, the interconnected networks and social relationships that are formed within them. So people who are attending programming like a cooking class or childcare or seniors programming and at these spaces on a kind of regular basis are forming social relationships, not just with staff and volunteers and program coordinators in these buildings, but they're also forming relationships with their neighbors, other community members, and building these kind of strong social connections that can actually be life-saving during an emergency. And this model or the importance of social infrastructure is really born out of a lot of literature. So Eric Klinenberg wrote extensively about this topic in his book Heat Wave on the Chicago heat wave and the sort of differences in how different neighborhoods with social infrastructure or with weaker social infrastructure experienced that event. Daniel Aldrich has also been writing extensively on this topic about communities both in the United States, but also in Japan. So lots of literature to sort of back up the fact that social infrastructure can be quite life-saving in communities. And so in terms of what this looks like in practice in Vancouver, as Aphrodite said, we have a program called the Resilient Neighborhoods Program. We launched this in 2017 as part of our Resilient Vancouver strategy and have slowly grown it over the years. Some of the most significant growth in this program, though, has occurred in the last 4 years after the heat dome, where we convened organizations in the aftermath of that event to discuss with them what were the impacts that they were seeing on the ground in their own neighborhoods, and also talk with them about what capacities they had to address extreme heat. The relationships that we have with these organizations are really important, and we really kind of founded this program on the premise that during crises, people go to the places they know and trust to meet their needs. So if someone does not typically feel safe or secure attending, government services, going into government facilities, or they're even just not familiar with them, they're less likely to go to those spaces for help when they really need it. So over the past 4 years, we've been developing these partnerships with different organizations across Vancouver. At the moment, we have 15 organizations in Vancouver, and those include neighborhood houses, the Aboriginal Friendship Center, a group called Britannia Community Services Center, and others. And we're providing them with grants so that they can work with us and work with their communities on extreme heat. We provide those organizations with direct funding, but we also work with another roughly 60 organizations across the city who we have, non-financial relationships with. We provide them with information and presentations. We provide them with cool kits, and another one of our extreme heat programs in Vancouver that they can then deliver to their communities, and a lot of other kind of in-kind supports for those groups. And all of our partners take a really significant role in not only providing direct services during extreme heat, but they also play this ongoing role as sort of a feedback loop for the city. So while they're working with their communities, we're getting direct input on the experiences of communities on the ground around extreme heat, what people need, and it helps us kind of update not just the city's plan, but also figure out how we can better support our partner organizations who are delivering these services. They also play a crucial role in distributing information to these communities. So again, thinking of that issue of trust, If people don't trust the city or government institutions day to day, they're going to be less likely to kind of adopt the messaging that we're putting out around extreme heat, whereas our partners are well trusted, so they can be messengers of that information in really important ways. These organizations also play this critical role of, again, kind of building that strong and flexible social fabric in Vancouver, developing relationships, not just with people, but in between different community members. And they're also able to sort of help people transition that social connection into social capital. So fighting for the resources and the supports that they need. So one of the other things that we do with our partners is we convene them every year for what we call a seasonal readiness call. During that time, we bring all of these partners together. We share a presentation on extreme heat so that everybody is starting from the same foundation of knowledge of what the challenges are and who is affected. And then from there, we provide an overview of all of the city's extreme heat plans and services so that our organizations can again kind of tap into that. And then lastly, we have a forum. So all of our partners are able to sort of communicate with each other about their own plans, build off of each other's ideas, and form this really rich community of practice around heat. So to dive a little into what the actions are on the ground, I think this is sometimes the most interesting part. I'll make it clear, our partners are doing work that in many cases the city would not be able to do. So during the heat dome, if I remember correctly, there were about 12,000 calls to 911 dispatch in one single day. So that really overran our first responders, and they weren't able to keep up with the number of calls they were getting. So we need partners who are on the ground who are also able to prevent people from getting to a state where they're requiring emergency care. But in terms of the actions our partners are doing, one of the big actions that has taken place since 2022, when we first kind of started convening these groups, many of them have taken on conducting wellness checks on isolated or vulnerable folks in their communities. So they have set up phone trees, or their volunteers are either calling or physically visiting people in person during extreme heat events in order to check on their well-being and make sure they're okay. Again, thinking back to that coroner's report, which said people living alone are at disproportionate risk. Our partners have also been instrumental in distributing cool kits. I mentioned as one of the city's other programs, you can see one of those kits in the bottom right-hand bubble on the screen. They've distributed fans and evaporative coolers to people living in buildings without air conditioning. They've stocked community coolers. You see an image of that on the bottom image in the bubble, which contains drinks and electrolytes and other things that people can grab for free on the go in a neighborhood on a hot day. They've engaged youth in planting trees and stewarding trees as well, so making sure they're getting watered throughout the summer. They've installed air conditioning, heat pumps, and shade outside of their facilities to expand the network of cool spaces that we have across Vancouver. And they've also activated those spaces. So a continual refrain we heard in our engagement after the heat dome was that many people aren't able to get to cooling centers. And even if they are, once they get there, there's not anything for them to do and keep them there. So these organizations are putting out food and games and movies, so people will actually stay in a cool space for much longer. And they're providing multilingual training and engagement and workshops on extreme heat with different communities that we typically in the city don't necessarily have reach into. And then in one really incredible case, one of our partners used their shuttle van to pick up Indigenous elders and take them to forests and lakes around Vancouver for land-based cooling. So this is the work that's been happening since 2022, basically on an annual basis now. But every year we sort of build off of this work. We see new initiatives come up. And so I'll just highlight a couple of ones that are newer to this program, but still really exciting to see. In 2024 and continuing on this year, the city has been partnering with an organization called Technology for Living, who serves people with disabilities. And in a grant through C40's Inclusive Climate Action Fund, we were able to purchase 155 cooling vests. You see that on the left-hand side of the screen for people with disabilities. And Technology for Living distributed those through a peer-based program in the summer of 2024. They are doing very similar work with different types of cooling devices places this year for that population. In addition to that, we have partners who have been building and constructing their own misting stations. So the city fabricates misting stations that we deploy in the summer, but there's quite frankly not enough of them for the demand. And so community partners are getting together, and in particular finding that groups of retired men who want to work with their hands have been really interested in getting together and building these and putting them up in the summer. And then thirdly, this is an idea borrowed from, I believe, Malaga, Spain. There was a group that did this, but one of our partners got a knitting and crochet group together and decided they were going to crochet a shade canopy for one of their community gardens that actually doesn't have any shade in it. So again, trying to think of these really creative, innovative ways of doing heat work, but also doing a lot of social connection as part of that. So that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation. I'll maybe just close off by saying something, I know I'm speaking to a range of resilience practitioners right now and resilience experts. Something that has been really incredible to see in how this program has evolved over the years is the three different things that we found have made it successful, which is really us as the city taking a much more collaborative approach with community-based organizations, seeing them not just as groups that we need to kind of provide information down to, but really seeing us as on the same level and recognizing that they hold a tremendously important role in this work, that we need to work with them better, we need to support them, and we need to champion what they're doing. Also really this model of collective care. So recognizing that, resilience is not a do-it-yourself endeavor, it's a collective act. So working with these partners who are building that social fabric every day has been instrumental in them being able to support people during emergencies. And also this concept of moving at the speed of trust. So if our partners don't trust us, then it's going to be a lot harder to work with them. So we need to earn that trust and maintain that trust with our partners. And in turn, they're able to leverage the trusting relationships they have in community and make sure that those community members are receiving the care and the support that they need for extreme heat. So I'll stop there, but thanks so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Katia. So very great overview of the approach and the importance of it, and then great specific examples of what you're doing. I just want to remind everyone real quick to please add questions to the chat so that we can save them for later and get to them. We're looking forward to that. And I'll turn it over without delay to Iphigenia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aphrodite. I'm going to share my screen. You can see it now, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you so much for the invitation to participate in this very timely webinar. So I would like to thank the organizers for this initiative. I will take inspiration from Katia and all this amazing work that they have done on the ground. And I'm going to move the audience to the digital world, where we have some digital tools that can be used to achieve heat resilience. And this is going to be the topic of today. And I'm going to give you some examples from the city of Athens. I'll start with the urgency of heat resilience with this stripe graph that gives the differences in the temperatures in Athens, Greece, relevant to the average of the years between 1961 and 2010. So this is a climatic average of 50 years. And you see how the mean temperature of Athens has changed compared to this average. And you see that as we go after the year 2000, we are going to very warm summers. So if you compare it also with other regions, as Aphrodite said in the introduction, you will see that the Mediterranean is warming faster than the global average. And in this graph, you see how heat waves in the last 5 years were among the most intense ever recorded for the city of Athens, but this is also the case for many parts of the world. So cities must act fast and smart to protect vulnerable populations. And here I'm sharing something that I read yesterday. It is taken from The Guardian, where it says that climate breakdown tripled death toll in Europe's June heat wave. And the study is talking about 2,300 deaths. This is an initial estimate, but the number is really big. And we're talking about 12 cities, 12 European cities from just 1 week in the summer. So I'm going to show you some examples that are driven from 2 European-funded projects that have developed digital tools for heat resilience. The first example is a suite of services that we have developed at the National Observatory of Athens in the framework of a flagship program called Arsinoi that is coordinated by the University of Thessaly by Professor Chrysilla Spidou and Yannis Adamos. And this project is now in its final phase. And another project that has recently started, it is called Carmine. It is led by Meteo Romania. And in this project, we are developing a digital twin for heat. I'm going to end my presentation with a little surprise, as very gladly I'm going to make an announcement today, taking advantage of this floor and this amazing audience. So let me start with the work that we have done in Arsinoi. So we have developed a suite of services for identifying the hotspots. And now I'm going to link with what Katia was saying before, because somehow you need to prioritize the areas where you want to have your activities on the ground. So cities are, extremely large. You have different vulnerabilities across the city, but also you have different hazards. Here you see what comes out from the analysis of 185 satellite images coming from Landsat sensor in the thermal infrared, where we can actually depict the temperatures. So this is not a satellite image taken on one day. This is not what happened once, but this is the statistical analysis taken from 185 images taken in the span of 5 summers from June to August. And they depict the land surface temperature distribution across the municipality of Athens that you see here on the right. This is a zoom in at the municipality of Athens. And land surface temperature is very much related to urban ventilation and population density, to air temperature, to land cover and land use. And of course, from this, you can infer information about shadow and cooling effect. Let me go to the next slide, where taking this information on the land surface temperature and its distribution, which now you see here on top, you also see other variables that we have taken into consideration. So what I like about this study is that for this, we have gathered together from different research groups at NOAA, and each one of us has given an input that is based on a very big analysis. So we have the climatic parameters that come from a big time span, and they are downscaled to 1 kilometer resolution. Also, we have information about the air quality, and we have separated the days where the air quality index was more or equal to 3. And this goes down to 100 meters, and also the accessibility to green spaces. So this is the 5-minute city concept that says that within 5 minutes you should be able to reach a green space, like a park, for example. So we have used a multi-parameter tool to indicate out of all these different layers, the most problematic sites for the city. So when you have an intervention, when you're planning to have some activities on the ground, you have to be sure that the area that you are looking at is actually the one that is in need for help. The resulting raster values that you see here are derived from equally weighted environmental hazards like the ones that I mentioned before. The analysis is done at 100-meter pixel size, and they are characterized either by good overall environmental conditions, where the values are close to 0, and as you go to red, it goes closer to 1, and you see the areas that are considered the hotspots in the city of Athens and should be prioritized for interventions. And with this, I'm going to conclude this part of the presentation that has to do with intensive work with data sets. And I'm going to move on to a tool. This is the digital twin. That basically, what is a digital twin? A digital twin is the digital, let's say, partner of the real world. So we are testing things in the digital world, and we try to understand what is going to happen in the real world if we're going to apply certain solutions. The first step for this is to actually develop it and understand what is happening now. So DDHeat Plus is a next generation tool. We're talking about a digital twin. It is for cities. It is not only for Athens. It is delivering next day forecasts on heat-related mortality using Earth observation, AI, and other urban data. It is developed by NOAA under the framework of Carmine project, and it's going to appear very soon on Destination Earth platform. That is the platform by ESA, ECMWF, and EUMETSAT that is developing a digital twin of the whole Earth. The aim of DDHeat is to support both the long-term planning and the real-time management during heat season. And today, what we have is version 1. It is operational and it is live. And the one for the long term is going to come next. So DDHeat started as a heat mortality estimator. This was the initial plan, but progressively it expands to exemplify how Earth observation, AI, predictive modeling can be leveraged within ESA Destination Earth to address urban heat in cities. So our motto now is like heat risk intelligence, one place. So we want to have this one place to find all the information you need for heat risk intelligence. Some highlights: we have joined forces with Destination Earth to advance urban resilience. Here is the announcement. Also, we have, and this is how it all started. Actually, we have an award from ESA. It was an innovation challenge that we got the most promising proposal with DDHeat. And here is our group of stakeholders in the living lab of Carmine for the case study area of metropolitan Athens. I'm going to show you some screenshots to explain that this is live. I don't have time to demonstrate the platform now. We can in the questions session if you want, but we have live data, daily and hourly data. We have already integrated 4 cities: Athens metropolitan area, Prague, London, and Bucharest. All are metropolitan areas. And to be very honest with you, when you were signing in, I saw that someone logged in from London. So the last moment, I changed the risk example that I was going to give you for Athens, that was from 2 days ago, and I updated it with London today. So this is actually today. And you see that the mortality relative risk in London today is 25.2% more than the normal temperatures. So, and these are two models. I don't want to go into details because I don't have the time. But this is the kind of information you can extract from there. From the portal, you can also see, and this is not for London now, examples of how today's values are compared with the rest of the summer temperatures, and how the risk is broken down to the different age groups. All this with documentation, you will be able to find it in the platform, and also you will be able to see the different the correlation between the different variables. And now I come to my last slide, that is this announcement that I wanted to make. So it is with great pleasure that I announce to this audience that DT Heat Plus is now live. So you are very welcome to access it. Here is the link on the screen and also in the chat. You just have to register. It's one-step registration process, nothing too much. And you can explore live relative mortality risks and all the other features that I have talked about. Stay tuned, because this is only the beginning. There is more to come. We are in discussion with more cities, and also we want to include more tools and also maps that at the moment are not in this version. Integrate NBS solutions, see what the impact of these NBS solutions will be, integrate policies and the policy brief, and also some future climate projections for the cities. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Iphigenia. Exciting, an announcement. You heard it here first, folks. The digital twin for heat is live, and you can check it out. Be one of the first to check it out. And we have the link is in the chat for that digital twin, so you can take a look. Great, we have some time for questions, and we have a few great questions coming in already. But first, before we do that, I think we're going to have an interactive question, a poll. So that's going to pop up on the screen in just a moment. And the question is, you should see the poll. The question is, where do you see the greatest opportunity for cities to strengthen their heat response? So you can choose one, and in just a moment, we'll have. So the first option is partnering with local organizations to extend outreach, using data and tech to better target interventions, improving emergency planning and coordination, investing in nature-based solutions for a long-term impact. Indeed, it's hard to select just one. That's the complexity of all of this. All right, and it looks like 44% came in just a little bit in the lead, investing in nature-based solutions for long-term impact. And then second is partnering with local organizations to extend outreach. Yeah, and then pretty evenly using data and improving emergency planning and coordination. Of course, yes, several people have indicated it would have been, it's hard to choose just one. And these things are also importantly interconnected, right? I think there's all these different, especially when the tools that Iphigenia is presenting is, using data at this strategic planning level, but then how do you go through multiple levels of communicating this to different institutions, different types of practitioners, and then all the way down to like a community level that can reach, it can turn into action that reaches everybody that needs to be reached, right? So we have some great questions. I'll start with a couple very good questions for came in right away for Katia. Katia, let's look at the first one is from Carl. Great presentation. Katia loves seeing all that the city and partners have been doing So for the Resilient Neighborhoods program, what size of grants did you disperse to the organizations, the civil society groups? Where did the funding come from? Is it one-off or longer term? And how are you measuring impact, if you want to start with that one?
Yeah, thanks so much. So our grants range from 10,000 to 15,000 per organization. It is not a lot of money that we're able to offer, unfortunately. We would love to be able to expand those grants to more the 25,000 range, recognizing several of our partners do use that funding to support part-time staff persons. So for example, their seniors programmer will also play a role as the heat programmer. So they're kind of wearing these multiple hats. Our funding is completely flexible. So organizations can spend it on staff time, they can spend it on equipment, they can spend it on whatever they need. They know their budgets infinitely better than we do. So we try to be flexible about that, but it's not a lot of funding. In terms of where it came from, the unfortunate news is we have a very small budget for extreme heat work within our department, and that really came in the aftermath of the heat dome. So I'm sorry to say that unfortunately we often make these investments after something terrible happens, but we're kind of continuing to try and expand the budget for this program wherever we can. And then I think there was a part in that question around evaluation, if I remember.
How do you measure
Yeah,
impact?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so also a fantastic question. We do collect metrics from our partners. So how many cool kits did you distribute, or how many wellness checks did you conduct? It's a real, we also collect impact stories. I think the qualitative responses that we get are much more informative and interesting, quite frankly. We try to really balance the effort of evaluation with that evaluation. So recognizing we're not giving our partners a huge amount of money. So we don't want to ask them to spend, multiple weeks reporting back on what they've done. So we've tried to actually host calls at the end of the season where they can just verbally tell us about the work they did, or submit like a paragraph description with a photo, something like that. That's quite simple. We know we would like to get into the space of doing kind of a more more impact evaluation, but that would probably need to come with some resource increases to our partners.
Great. And this is a related question, so I'll just ask it to Katia again, just because it's very related, and then we'll switch to a couple questions for Iphigenia, actually. Someone also wrote that they do similar work in their city, and one challenge is often getting community partners interested in collaborating at the initial phase on initiatives like resilience hubs. So how do you, what strategy do you have to spark that initial interest or buy-in on like emergency readiness and things like this?
Yeah, so similar kind of answer as before. We found like our Resilient Neighborhoods program, we had launched it years before and had a kind of core set of partners in the aftermath of the onset of the pandemic, and then the heat dome following in 2021. We found that generated a lot of interest for this work from community partners who were on the front lines during both of those experiences. But I will also say, regardless of a serious emergency or disaster befalling your community, one of the big things that I found is most effective is really digging into relationship building with those partners, regardless of the topic. So just, I spent a lot of time going for tours of their facilities and just learning about the programs that they offer and talking about my work, but saying, if you ever need anything from the city or you don't know who to talk to at the city, reach out to me and I'll see if I can connect you. So starting to build that long-term relationship with those partner organizations has been, I think, a big shift, even in the absence of disaster, in getting partners who want to work with us. And we found it really does snowball. So the more organizations you work with, the more will want to work with you because they're starting to, as a sector, see you as trusted partners.
Great, thanks. Yeah, again, the importance of even for a short-term response or collaboration, the long-term relationship is also important in the effort. Iphigenia, we'll switch to you. There's a couple specific questions here. One is, are there any challenges with ensuring that the data quality going into the digital twin? How do you test that? And then the other one, you can answer whenever, is to what extent was the Humidex index integrated into the decision-making criteria for the Arsenoi platform, particularly in the context of evaluating and managing heat-related risks?
Yeah.
So whichever one you want to answer first.
Okay, thank you so much for the great questions. Let me start with a more general one regarding the data quality. In DT Heat, we are only integrated validated datasets, and actually they are coming from like Copernicus services, or they come from Destination Earth platform that is provided by the European Space Agency, CMWF, and EUMETSAT. Beyond doubt, these are well-known and well-validated data sets. And actually, what I want to stress here is that this is actually making the solution scalable and transferable, because we're not using local data for everything. We are using data sets that we can actually find also for other cities. And of course, yes, for local data, for socioeconomic data, we're using census data coming from the statistical authority. So we try to be, as careful as possible with the data sets that we are using. Going to the second question regarding Humidex, for people who are not familiar with Humidex is an index. It is a discomfort index that takes into consideration the temperature and the relative humidity. I didn't have the time to go deep into the different layers, but this is actually taken into consideration in terms of a discomfort index that uses the two variables into the climatic layer, because in this layer this is the outcome of a model that takes into consideration, of course, the temperature and together the relative humidity. And to take it even further to more sophisticated indices, it takes into account the wind as well. But for the case of Athens, let me just say here that Athens, although very hot, it is also very dry. So we don't suffer from in general, okay, there are exceptions, but in general, the heat waves are, quite intense, but they are also dry. I'm not saying that Humidex is not relevant. I'm just saying that it is not as important as it would be in an analysis in different cities.
Great, and thank you. So we have a question that either of you can answer from your perspective or work. The question is, where'd it go? Here we go. From Anthu at Global Cities Hub. Thanks for the interesting webinar. Just wanted to know to what extent cities collaborate with their national administrations on community resilience to heat, or is this a locally only led effort? So if anything you want to share on that aspect of how then national level is engaged in this, or should be engaged in this, or could be engaged in this.
I can start if you want. I can talk about the experience we're having with Carmine project. And we're talking, our main stakeholder and actually partner in the project is the Athens metropolitan area, the new metropolitan Athens, as what it's called. And so we're talking about a regional authority. But also we are partnering with a ministry, the Ministry of Digital Governance. And very soon, in the next days, we have organized a meeting with another ministry. So we are trying to actually put all these different governance levels to talk to each other, to create a platform that would be useful to all of them and take feedback from them to make it relevant to what they want to say. Because the main part here, because I know we're doing something, digital twin, people will think, why do we need that? The reason why we probably need that is because we want to listen to the problems and we want to solve them in one platform where someone can actually go there and get the answers that they want in order to form policies, in order to have actions on the ground. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that we have, succeeded already. This we will be able to say towards the end of the project. But I would certainly say that the efforts are in this direction to bring municipalities, regional authorities together with a national government. At least for the case of Athens, that I'm more aware of.
Yeah. And I'll just add that, I mean, there isn't a national planning or action plan on heat right now in Greece. So this is why some of this has to kind of develop a little more. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have a huge amount to say on this topic. With our Resilient Neighborhoods program, and not all, but a majority of our extreme heat work does take place at the local level. It is by the city of Vancouver. We have some partnerships and relationships with provincial bodies. The federal government isn't particularly involved with this work. They typically in Canada will act as sort of a funder, but mostly for like very large, hard infrastructure projects. So extreme heat is something that they haven't sort of waded into yet as a hazard that needs to be addressed at the national scale. There's also really different circumstances in different, like Canada's a very big country. So for example, air conditioner uptake in communities is extremely different across the provinces. So some provinces, there's much higher rates. BC is actually one of the lowest. So there is a bigger need for some of this heat work in some places rather than others.
Katia, I noticed someone in the chat asked if you could share information about the heat dome impact. So I just want to also mention, this is something interesting too, that the report that Katia mentioned by the BC Coroner's Office is something that I think not all countries have a medical legal investigator actually investigating heat wave impacts, right? So this is something that I think in some places in Canada, in this case, it was the provincial level office. And then in some cities in the US also have or counties have a coroner's office that now investigates the deaths during and after a heat wave to kind of give some more information about, like, did the deaths happen indoors or outdoors or in public buildings, and something more so that you really know who's being impacted. Great, and let's see. So overall, so we've talked a little bit about of course, in the poll too, longer term nature-based solution investment is kind of came out a little bit in the lead. But how do we, if you have any more last thoughts that you want to share about how we balance this investing in long-term solutions like urban greening, but also like really investing in getting your local authority to commit to longer-term relationships with community organizations and groups. How do you balance this then with the need for urgent responses as they come, as crises come along? We're thinking about it. Still, I think one of the things that is here is that I've noticed is, again, is this importance of how many different kinds of stakeholders are needed, and the importance that the data and information that we're collecting, and it gets better and better, but how do you have to communicate, you have to translate that communication and that data, that information that we're getting, any projections that we're able to do has to be communicated from one level, like let's say Iphigenia, like what these platforms are doing, certain individuals and certain professionals will be able to use that and really know what that means and understand it fully. And then it has to translate down to different levels of planners. And then it has to be communicated differently when you're going to work with all the different community organizations that need to understand kind of how the dynamics, who is impacted, how we know who could be impacted more down the line, and then communicate that differently to journalists and how they need to understand this kind of information or alerts and how they communicate it publicly. And then how you get down to helping individual people understand the risk of heat, because heat is tricky, right? Some places that people are used to heat, so they think we're used to heat. Why is this a new emergency? Other times it's not expected, but it seems pleasant at first, like, great, we finally have warm weather. Sometimes news media reports are just showing people saying, oh, that's fine, I'll just take another extra bottle of water with me and it's good to go. So all of these things need to change. But I think one of the things that we're seeing, and I'm sure a lot of the people that are watching right now know this experience, like it's just a matter of like, you have to just get different kinds of organizations, different kinds of professionals, different kinds of partners involved, and just keep working at how we communicate and translate information differently all along the path. Are there any, so we're getting close to the end of our hour here. We have a few more minutes though. Let's see if there's any more questions. Katia, we have a specific question for you. How has Vancouver been coping with the overdose crisis, also to effectively support the social infrastructure programs in the face of extreme heat?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we know that extreme heat exacerbates the overdose crisis. We do see in the health data that there are kind of spikes in overdoses and overdose-related deaths during extreme heat events. So these two things are actually very closely tied. Many of the partners that we work with actually do really actively kind of support community amidst the overdose crisis. So it's not a hard sell for us to work with community partners, particularly in Vancouver's downtown east side, and have them want to connect these two things. So even in the first year that we started working with organizations and offering grants, some of the partners we were working with were proposing that they actually do, for example, combined first aid and harm reduction training for heat and harm reduction around overdoses. So they were already from the beginning really making that connection of these dual public health crises unfolding at the same time in the same communities. So that is, I think, a big piece of this work. We also do, Iphigenia has really talked about targeting some of our supports to different areas in the city. That has also taken place in our work. We really do look at we don't have as sophisticated data as she does, but we do use data and look at sort of neighborhood-based impacts and direct resources accordingly. So in neighborhoods where we do see these kind of dual public health crises, we are trying to divert additional resources to partners in those neighborhoods, recognizing these things are kind of happening concurrently and overlapping pretty significantly.
Thank you. And I just want to mention, before I hand it over back to Nicole, I just want to mention in the chat that Kendra White also shared, not a question, but Cambridge, Massachusetts has done some great work around shade is social justice, and a shadescape study that works to understand the relationship between building shade and tree shade by hour. So there's some links there if you want to check that out. Yeah. So Nicole, I can hand it back to you to wrap up. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. I just want to give a big thanks to our panel and our host for today. I think the conversation was really interesting and getting to dive into all of these different strategies that can come together and help us respond to heat in a better way. So thanks again for everyone joining us today. Just remember that our materials are going to be up on the website, so you'll be able to check that out, including the recording of the session. Also, I'd like to invite everyone to join us in our upcoming session. It's going to be on urban energy resilience, and it's going to be happening on the 14th of August. So again, one more time, thank you to everyone who joined from all around the world. I hope you have a wonderful day or evening. Thanks.